Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me, as always, in the studio is the man that makes all the magic happen. Without his efforts, we would not be here. We would not have this show. So please send some comments to our friend, our producer, our engineer, Dan the man, in the studio making things happen. How you doing, Dan? How's it going?
I am doing fantastic today. I am so looking forward to hearing Mark's story today. I am.
Do you know any secrets ahead of time?
I don't know any. Well, I actually do. We have a couple things in common that have happened to us. I'll talk about that
Good.
when we get
We'll
to
bring
the
you
end.
in there when that happens.
If it doesn't get brought up.
So you all may have noticed at home, we do have a special guest again, and we love bringing these people in to tell their stories because that's all we have is our story, which is true life. And that's what makes 12-step recovery, I feel, different than every other approach to healing, is that you're not going to get information out of a textbook or out of somebody's theory or philosophy. You're actually going to get real deal, real world. This is what I did. This is where I went. This is what happened. And this is what I'm like now. And so that's what our good friend Mark over here is going to share today. Mark, say hello to everybody at home.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome
Good
to
be
the
here.
podcast. Glad you're here, my friend.
Thank you.
So we always start with the most simple but also the most important question I'm going to ask you today. What is your sobriety date, Mark?
My sobriety date is February.
Uh-oh, he changed it.
No,
That's-
February
It's
20,
just- it's
February 25th, 2007.
25th, all right. Now, was that
Just a long time ago.
was that intentional or was that just the way it fell?
I got arrested for drunk driving, and yeah,
You had to detox in jail.
I got to do a lot of things in jail.
That sucks. We'll get to that part of the story.
Okay,
And what was the year again?
2007.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome. You're coming up on 20 years pretty soon
30.
here. A couple of years.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about where you grew up. Tell me about your family, brothers and sisters, and what. Anything.
I'm the middle of 5 children. I've got an older brother and an older sister, and a younger brother and a younger sister. And we grew up in Valley Station in Louisville, Kentucky. Was just doing the math the other day, and my dad was 33 and had 5 children. My mom was 28 and had 5 children within 10 years. And
Goodness.
my father used to be a jockey,
Oh, really?
but he had trouble keeping his weight down. My mom would talk about cooking a big meal, and he would go back in the bathroom and throw it up just so he could maintain his weight. And she said he wasn't a very good jockey either. And so he became a horse trainer, and I more or less grew up on the backside of Churchill Downs. So
No kidding.
when my brother and I were old enough to walk, we would be out at the track trying to do something. I think as we got older, we thought we were out there to work, but as we got older, I knew it was to get out of my mom's hair. You know, she had 2 other ones younger than me, and I knew it was a way for getting the 2 boys out. And also, we would contribute out the track. We were carrying water buckets when we were 4 and 5 years old,
That's awesome.
walking horses. But it's awesome, but it also happened on the weekends, and our summers were spent at the track. There was no sleeping in, you know. It's like, you know,
Yeah, they started early at the track.
they started
Everything
early
starts
and
early.
7 days a week. And that was my childhood, the racetrack.
Tell me about your dad's passion for horses. Does that come from his family, or is that just
I
something?
guess because of his size, and
Uh-huh.
and then he got around to some people, and they said, Jack, you'd probably do good out the track. And his father died at a young age of tuberculosis, and he had to get to work. And with his size, it was like, well, the racetrack that's where you can earn a living, Jack. And he did, and then he joined the Army. And he didn't talk. I knew he was in the Korean War. He didn't talk much about the Korean War. I knew he was a paratrooper because when we were little, he would break out this trunk with all his medals and stuff in it, and then he would climb up on the couch and act like he's jumping out of an airplane and roll on the ground.
Oh,
and,
that's freaking awesome.
and the darndest thing is, I went and saw him today, and he's 93 years old now. He's got macular degeneration. He can't hear. He's got COPD, but he's got the most wonderful, beautiful attitude to life. And my mom passed away in 2018. And before I left today, he said, "Here, I want you to have this." And it was his honorable discharge certificate from the Army. And I looked at the date, and it was July of 1960, and I wasn't even 1 year old yet when he was in. So he had 3 children, 5 and under, at home with my mom while he was in the Army.
That's phenomenal.
It's like, wow.
So you're up in my age range. In other words,
I'll be 66 next month.
yeah. So you were working the track when my grandfather was the president out there.
Probably.
No kidding.
We had no choice, Weekends, holidays, summers. My dad would go. Back now in Kentucky, they race year round, and you can be stabled at Churchill Downs and go race throughout. Say you're going to Turfway or Ellis Park, and you just jump on a van and take your horse down there the day of the race. Well, back then, we would go live. Our summers were spent living in Henderson, Kentucky, and we'd live in a little tack room, about a 10 by 10, me and my dad and my older brother, and that's where we spent our summers. We would be working, and sometimes he would get down low on horses, so we would have to go to work for somebody else and earn a paycheck for the family.
So would he bounce around to different horse farms in Kentucky?
No, he would stay at the track.
Okay.
Well, sometimes like in the afternoons, the way it is at the track, you start early, then you got a break, and then you go back in the afternoons and feed the horses. Well, them 3 or 4 hours he had to break, he may go out to Prospect or Goshen or somewhere and break yearlings or something too.
Wow.
And you think about trying to raise 5 children. I remember, and he had back trouble. I remember I would see him crawl out of his truck and crawl into the house, and
But he did it. He committed and got y'all fed.
He did, and I'm so fortunate. I went into the business, and the last probably 15 years of his training career, we got to work together. We would always be in the same barn together, and it just to see his smiling face every day was priceless, And I'd do things for him, and he'd do things for me, and you don't even ask, you just do it, and I was very fortunate to have that.
I'm hearing a theme, and I'm very jealous. It sounds like your dad was one of your major heroes, if not your biggest hero.
He was, but it didn't always start out like that,
Yeah.
I was very fearful of my father at first. Growing up, for a period of time, I was the youngest. I have an older brother who was 15 months older, and I love him to death. We're good friends now, but for the first, say, 10 or 12 years of his life, his job was to torment me 24/7. And my mom and dad were always so busy. If you look at pictures of me growing up, you see the saddest little boy, and I always had bruises on my forehead or cuts, and it's my brother.
Every picture he's got you in a headlock or something, right?
And then one period of time, my dad thought it was a good idea to get his boxing gloves, and so he beat the crap out of me in boxing gloves because he was always a little bit bigger. But then I caught up with him, and one day we got into it, and I said, it's over with, and I just knocked him out. And
hell yeah, good for you, man. Yeah. It's rough with siblings, man. I was thinking about some of that in my own story just recently, and you want to be close to your brother, but then there's also a bit of a rivalry or competition thing going on. What do you think was his deal for why he felt like he picked on you all the time?
Well, back then they didn't diagnose ADHD, but he could not sit still. He had to be doing something, picking on something, and really he was a little punk. If it wasn't me he was picking on someone else, and he was just a bad actor. I remember back in those days we didn't use seat belts, but with him, my mom would put him in seat belts.
Just so he would sit still.
And one day our car got stuck on the railroad tracks with a train coming.
Oh, no.
And he's in the seat belts, and I'm saying, yes! And she literally had to flag the train down and run back there and get him out of the seat belt.
Oh, my God.
It stopped before it hit her station wagon, but it's like, I'll never
You
forget
almost
that.
thought you were rid of him.
Yeah, because I had a few more years of tormenting after that.
So did y'all move around a lot, or you just pretty much had that one place you stayed in Henderson?
No, that's we would go there in the summertime.
Okay, I got
and
you.
race. Our base was Valley Station, Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And then in the summertime, we may go to Chicago. Well, in '73, we went up to Rockingham Park, which is in Salem, New Hampshire. Me and my dad and my brother, and we would always stay in a tack room. Every now and then, when things were going good, I guess, and you had a little money, we might stay in a hotel for a couple of nights. But for the most part, it was the tack room. And
I think you should tell people what the tack room is.
a tack room is just like a concrete room with kind concrete floor, 4x4s, and a window usually attached to the barn. And yeah, you put a couple rollaway beds in there and a couple fans, and that's where we would sleep. We would
Normally,
go.
when
And
it's-
traditionally, that'd be where all the horse stuff
Yeah,
was
yeah,
kept.
the
The
gear.
leather and
Yes,
the saddles
yes,
and all that kind of
yes.
stuff.
But if we were lucky enough, we could have one just to sleep in, and but and maybe a refrigerator, maybe not. But we made the best of it. That was our life.
Well, it's an adventure for your kid. You know, you're with your dad, and you're away from mom, and you guys are having a bit of an adventure.
That was the thing. See, I was a mama's boy, and I was my mom growing up. She was my safe haven. You know, my mom. She was everything to me. I felt safe when my mom was there, and to go away from my mom, it just. I was scared of my dad, and I had a brother that tormented me. It was like, It was hell. I'm not going to lie. It was hell. I remember we would go to the drugstore and call her and talk to her on the phone, and I'd just be bawling my eyes out. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I want my mom,
Yeah, sure.
And I'm around because, he was my dad, but it wasn't like we had a bond. I didn't really know him. All I knew is he wanted us to work. And so my mom was everything to me. I remember, and it wasn't until I was a little older, and I remember this happening, and I was like 5 years old, and I had an older brother and sister that were in grade school, and my mom had just had another baby, my younger sister, and as to come to find out, they said she was going to have a nervous breakdown. Well, my dad was training at the time up in Baltimore, Maryland, so they put me on an airplane, and I went up to live with him in Baltimore. And I remember getting up there. I was so sad. I was sitting on that airplane looking out the window thinking, what's going on? Where am I going? And got up to Baltimore, and my dad, he did the best he could. He would take me to the track with him. And I remember snow being so deep, he would walk me up into the tack room, and this time we were living in someone's house, like renting a room, and we'd stay at their house at nighttime and get up and go out to the track, and he'd walk me up to that tack room, and I would just sit in that tack room while he was out there working, and it's just like, what is going on?
So you're sitting in that tack room, and you're left with your brother.
No, I was by myself.
All by yourself. Wow.
Yeah,
All day long?
They put me on a plane when I was by myself,
Oh,
5 years
gosh.
old, up to Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, man.
In the middle of the winter, and I'd be up in that tack room just sitting there while my dad was working, trying to feed the family, and then he'd come get me, and we'd go back to this house where we were renting a room, and yeah, we did that one winter, and that's stuff that I put away and forgot about, and
Sure.
then when my wife and I got married and had children, we'd started feeling the pressure of being 30 years old with 2 kids, and we started going to counseling, and that's when I, you've heard you talk about our defense mechanism growing up is we build a wall, and things that happen we don't necessarily like, we put behind that wall. Well, I had a lot of stuff behind that wall, and when I might have been 35 years old, but when behind that wall was a little boy that never got to understand why certain things happened.
There was no one there to support you, explain it to you, hold you.
No.
And if you listen to Gabor Mate, who's a trauma expert on YouTube, he talks about the events are traumatic, but the actual trauma is what happens afterward. If there's nobody there to help explain it to you or support you, and you're just left alone with it, it makes it much worse. But Mark, I'm a big believer. I do have a best friend in the program who had a perfect upbringing, but then when I dig a little bit deeper, he's got some things with his mom and his brother and stuff. I think this disease has to have fuel once it ramps up, to take us to the lengths we go through where it almost kills us the way we use. It's got to have some nuclear fuel. So that's real normal for us. All that stuff behind the wall, we all have some version of that. I'm just sorry that it happened so early in your life, because as a young kid, you didn't even know what was going on, like you said.
I got older, and I had the nerve one day to ask my mom, because there are pictures of me and my dad up in Baltimore, because we met a man and woman up there who later became good friends of the family, and I'm sitting there in their home, and I said, Mom, why did y'all send me up to Baltimore? I said, I was 5 years old, you know. And, she said, well, I was just had your sister Paula, and I was getting ready to have a nervous breakdown and thought that would be best. And so.
Did your mom have some mental health issues she struggled with, or just the stress?
Just the stress of kids. And,
well, that would be
know,
stressful for me, to be honest
She
with
was
you.
a kid, you know. She was,
sure. So let's get to the meat of the matter. How was alcohol figuring into any of this growing up?
You know what? Growing up, my father never drank, or if he did, I never saw him drink. We never had alcohol in the house.
Which is unusual for a horse trainer. And if you've
I'm not
everybody
saying
from-
he didn't. You know,
Yeah.
there were times, you know, we would maybe be coming home from the track, and he'd stop somewhere and make me and my brother sit out in the car for a couple hours while he was inside. And I never thought he was in there drinking and carrying on, but I don't know. He may have been, but drinking wasn't a thing growing up.
Yeah, how could you know? You're a kid. You don't know
Yeah,
what's going on. That's adult stuff. You
No, but I do know my family would get together, my extended family, my aunts and uncles, and they would all play cards on Sundays. And there was a lot of drinking going on there because as the day went longer, it would get louder and more vulgar. And it's like, I wasn't old enough to really know what was going on, but I knew something was going on.
There was a change.
There was a change.
And the
you know?
change sometimes for a child can be scary.
Yes.
Because you're like, they're acting a little unstable.
Yeah, you'd hear that money flying across the table and coins hitting the table, and you son of a bitch, and yeah.
And these are normal, like, church-going folk that don't say those kind of words, but
No.
when the alcohol comes out, they start saying them, right?
It was, you know, we say it now, it was very dysfunctional.
But your dad held it together. It didn't interfere with his work, and it sounds like maybe he didn't have the actual disease. He just
no.
had some drinking.
Every now and then he might have I don't know. Like I said, even when I got in the teens, we never had alcohol in the house, and
You think your mom might have forbid it? That she might not have told him,
No.
you can do what you're going to do, but don't bring it home?
I don't think so, because as I got older, I come to find out my mom was an alcoholic.
Oh, really?
Yes, her mother was an alcoholic. Now, her mother came to live with us as she got older, and she would get drunk almost every night. And then my mom, she started drinking and doing things that, wrecking cars and stuff that she shouldn't have been doing. But anyhow.
Do you remember the first moment you recognized that your mom might have a drinking issue? Do you remember a memory?
Probably when I was in my early 20s and drinking with her.
Okay.
Yes.
So
But,
let's cut to when Mark took his first drink.
Well, to be honest,
I mean, we got the fuel. We got your mom drinking a little bit on the side. So, I mean, there's some pretty good things there going in the mix to make Mark an alcoholic. But let's get to when you took your first taste of something.
well, I didn't like alcohol. I didn't. And then once my brother and once we became friends instead of enemies, I started hanging around with him a lot. He was only 15 months older than me. He could drive before I did. And
Was that after you beat him up that you all got respect between each other?
yes. Yes.
Give it to
But
me.
in the meantime,
Good job, man.
my dad took a job training at a horse farm in Ocala, Florida. So this was back in 73, summer of 73. We moved to Ocala, Florida, this big horse farm, and we didn't know anyone. Started at a new school. I was a sophomore. My brother was a junior, but by this time, he's already smoking pot and drinking a little bit, and it didn't interest me whatsoever. I was all about making good grades in school. I just wanted to be good, and but I started hanging around with him. He had a car. He had his license. He would drive us different places, and I played basketball, and his girlfriend was a cheerleader she was the same class as me, and Alan was a year older, and I would go with them after the ball games, and we'd go to parties and stuff. And I remember one time down in Florida, they had parties out in the pastures. They might spread out some bales of hay, and they called them pasture parties, have kegs of beer and music. And I was just sitting there minding my own business, and the guy came up to me and said, "What are you drinking?" I said, "I don't drink. I'm not drinking nothing." And he said, "Well, if you're going to come around here, you got to drink." And he had a bottle of vodka, and he poured it on my head.
Oh, no.
And I thought, man, if I am going to come around there, I'm going to ease into drinking. And I really didn't care much for it, but
You got the group pressure. You got the guys maybe a little older than you. You want to be one of the cool kids. If I could tell you, Mark, how rich I'd be for every person in group I've heard who has some angle of peer pressure to their first use. Now, these are people that we have a taste for this, and we like this lifestyle. But to start out, you'd be amazed how many of them said, well, my dad was like that, so I didn't want to do it, or for whatever reasons. But somebody, for a reason, I wanted to be part of the cool group. The older kid was making fun of me, or, my buddy. The entire wrestling team showed up on a Friday night. They grabbed him up and threw him in the back of a van. They said, you're going to drink this or you're going to wear it. And they held him down and shoved it down his throat. And that was such a trauma to him that he still had dreams, PTSD dreams about that as an adult later.
wow.
So I relate. That guy was being a total ass.
Yes.
And,
But I understood if I chose to hang out with my brother and go to certain places,
you got to fit
that's
in.
what I was going to do. And
We're here to drink.
so
I mean, I wouldn't want you at my house if you're not smoking pot.
the guys at,
That's the way I was
and
back in the day.
the guys at school, they said, "You live on such and such horse farm?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do they got cows?" I said, "Yeah, they got cows." He said, "Well, they've got mushrooms if they've got cows." I said, "Mushrooms," and they
Here
told
we
me
go.
what to look for.
Uh-huh.
So here I am.
Looking through cow
I
pies.
I got some. I found them. I said, "I think this is what they want." So go to school, and we're sitting out in the parking lot before school, and I've got a T-shirt with at least a dozen mushrooms in it, and there's like 5 of us sitting in my brother's car, and they said, "Yeah, that's it." And they said, "Well, let's eat them," and ate them. So
How old were you?
I was a sophomore in high
Sophomore.
school.
Here we go.
So.
You're about to turn on, bro.
So about an hour went by, nothing happened, and then about an hour, I got ready to go to my second period, and it's like the walls started closing in. I said, "You got to be kidding!" Whoa! And then I'd run into the other guys that were, it's like, get me through this day. But when people found out I had mushrooms, that took me to another level, and
Look at you.
yeah.
You graduated to dealer very early in your life.
And by choosing to hang around them type of people and do the things they were doing, classwork just started slipping.
Yeah, we say that type of people, but I mean that's kind of teenager behavior in general. Unless the people that are real focused, the goody two shoes we used to call them. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, they've been studying and shit. But
Yes.
teenagers, they experiment, they try new things.
Yeah.
And hell, you're getting this free because you just go down and get your supply wherever,
Right.
and you're bringing it around, and then you got automatic acceptance. You're the guy that everybody wants to see. You're the big man on campus,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And so then mushrooms and pot,
So did you like the effect from the
No,
mushroom? You
I
Like
didn't.
it? Yeah.
but I don't like that paranoia effect. And I probably did mushrooms probably 10 or 15 times, and you want to be around people doing mushrooms. You don't want to be around people that aren't.
No. I know. I hesitate to tell this story, but it's a good one. My buddy in New York was a son of a very famous actor, which I don't want to say, and he came over one time, and he goes, he's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, talking to me, and he looks at me, and goes, "Are you tripping?" And I go, "Yeah," like that. And I maintained up till then, but as you see that, I lost. He goes, "Come on, we should do some shit." And I'm just like, "No, I'm good. I don't need to go out." He goes, "No, we should go do some shit." So he starts dragging me down the streets of New York, and we're going here and there. And he got to this restaurant, and it looked like a very she yuppie type, 80s, you got to have money to go in this restaurant. And I was like, "No, I'm not going in there." He says, "Yeah, come on, man, we're going to this restaurant." So he's literally trying to pull me. We're out in front. There's people sitting on the sidewalk eating their dinner. I'm holding on to this metal pole on the street, and he's pulling my ass, and I'm going, "No, no, no," and I'm screaming as loud as I can. And eventually he gave up. But I was just like, yeah, that's what tripping does. You do not want things even Timothy Leary. I did a master's thesis on him for my bachelor's degree, believe it or not. And this is when I was sober. And he would talk about you need a controlled environment with a guide to have the best experience. You don't want to be just out on the streets of New York in the 80s, for God's sakes, the early 80s.
Just out
Scary.
loose.
Scary, man.
Yeah.
But somehow we ended up at his place. He took me in and took care of me. I think he gave me some cocaine or something. But
It scares me to think about it. What was I thinking?
well, it's scary to think today about how did that change your body chemistry, and are you going to get cancer later or some shit? Because I took a lot of acid back in the day, man. At least your stuff was organic.
Yes.
All right. So did drinking become more a thing? For you in
Yes,
high school?
drinking did, and the drinking age at the time in Florida was 18, so we could get a fake ID, and was sitting at the bars at 16. You know, they had ABC liquor lounges and 50 cent during happy hour, 50-cent call brands like bourbon and Coke. So we'd sit at the bar, 16 years old, order 4 drinks at a time. You know,
50 cents. Back
50
in the old
cents.
days.
Yes, and then it got to where every weekend I'd be drinking, and then it got to be, well, like I said, my grades started slipping, and on the weekends I was working at the farm, and I didn't know for sure that I would have a career with the horses. It was work. I was getting the money, and but I had no thoughts of going to college. And
All right, we'll slow it down because there's a couple of questions that we missed here. What did you like about alcohol? What did it do for Mark?
I didn't like the taste of it at first, but then eventually, once I got past the taste, it made me feel good. You know,
And so describe good for me, because for me, I would.
happy,
Okay.
happy.
What
you
else?
know? Happy. Just
Free.
I never felt confined, so no,
Okay.
I can't say free. Just happy. You know, it's like and really and truly, it made me forget about anything that might have happened.
There you go.
That you know,
I was comfortable in my own skin.
yeah.
Took away all the monsters from the past.
All of them. The
I'm like
people
I'm
that
like a
were
new
surrounding me
person.
now,
Mhm.
they never bothered me when I was growing up.
I mean, the amount of people I've encountered who don't understand this disease, and they'll be at me like, say, well, why do these people do this? And I'm like, oh my God, if you had even a tenth of happened to them, if only a tenth happened to you, you'd probably commit suicide. But when they get that taste of that liquor and it takes all that away, or heroin or whatever it is, that's a miracle. And that's the way I felt. I felt like I had taken my first full breath in 18 years of living under an alcoholic household. And I didn't realize I was that on guard and uptight from my shit, my trauma.
Yeah.
You carry it. So you carry it and you think that's normal life. It's not till you go to a therapist that you realize, damn. Like
Right.
I went to a grief seminar yesterday and I was crying more than I thought I would, and I think I've got some more grief work. And Dan's been getting a lot of people on his back. They're opening up him more, and there's like always more stuff to just, if you want to, you don't have to work on it, but it will take you into a new level of freedom.
Well, growing up, we thought we were normal. We thought we had a normal family. We
Basically,
thought
Basically, you
all
were.
kids got beatings and stuff.
Well, you didn't talk about that part. Was your dad physical with you? A little bit. It's okay.
A little bit, it's like
Was it his? Was it his way of disciplining you all, or you would just get frustrated?
well, I don't know. I remember one time we were fishing, and he would take us fishing and set us on the dock, and then he'd go around the lake fishing, and I'd get my line hung in the tree, and he'd have to come over and get it out, and because the fish were up underneath that tree. That's why I was old enough to realize that. I must have been 6 or 7 years old, and did it again. Here he come over there, and damn if I didn't do it again. And this time when he comes over, he just picks me up and dunks me in the water about 3 times, and then sets me down and just goes back over to fish. And it's like, what the fuck just happened? I don't know how to swim. Or we, like I said, when my aunts and uncles and them would come to play cards, us kids would try to get out of their way, and for some reason, my dad would make us me and my brother get in the corner and just jump. We just start jumping, and my face would turn so red. I was fair complected, and that my uncles and that they nicknamed me Red. And he'd be playing cards like nothing ever happened. Look over and make sure we're still jumping, And then if we wasn't jumping high enough, he'd do like this, and we'd have to start jumping higher. And you didn't think nothing of it then, But as I got older, and especially once I had kids, it's like, what the fuck?
It's it's legacy. I would imagine it's what a lot of probably what happened to him, and then whatever happens to him, if they don't get any help or therapy, they just pass it right on to their kids, thinking that's normal. That's how you discipline your kids. Because I imagine maybe in his fucked up thinking, this isn't saying it was right, but he was thinking, well, I'm going to wear them out. If they got all that energy, I'll wear them out. Then they'll just go to bed and leave us alone.
I don't know.
But it's fucked up, nevertheless.
And you don't realize how messed up it is until you have children of your own and things.
Right, that you would never do that to them, right?
And it all came to a head to me one time. When I was training horses, one of the owners came out to talk with me, and one of the owners that I trained for, and my son was like 4 years old, and I'm trying to talk to this owner, and he's just into everything. His little sister's there, and they're into everything, and I can't get a word in with this man edgewise, and he finally realized it and left, and I just took my son in the tack room, and I grabbed a riding stick whip up off the wall, and I was just getting ready to hit him with it, and he looked at me with these eyes and said, "Daddy, why do you want to hurt me?" And at that moment I saw myself sitting there, and I said, "Michael, I don't want to hurt you." And I put that whip down, and I gave him a big hug, and I never laid a hand on him in my life. It's
Good
like,
for you, man.
I seen myself sitting there and think, why didn't I have the courage to say that
Because
ever?
you were a child, Mark. Half of my work, man, seriously, half of my work is explaining to people that scientifically the child's brain is not formed yet. So you don't have the ability to say no or to understand even what's happening. Okay? So you don't know what the right and wrong is of the world yet. You don't have the ability to discern and judge things. That comes much later in the brain's development when you're a teenager. And even teenagers, look at the goofy shit they do with risk taking. That shows you their brain isn't even formed yet fully. So, again, let's not beat up on ourselves for shit that happened to us because it wasn't your fault.
Well, that was a
You
turning
were a
point in
child.
my life, because I thought to myself, I could never hurt him.
Now, was that, no, we're not going to jump ahead in the story, but was that while you were still drinking?
Yes.
Okay, so hold on to that. I want to get
Yes.
that in the timeline. The other question I like to ask before we leave high school alone, if I had come to you at 18 and said, I actually have a magic wand, Mark, and I can wave this and give you any career path. You can do anything you want in the world. I could make it happen and you'll be successful. Any idea what you would have wanted to do if all your dreams?
I was a good writer.
Yeah?
I was
Seriously?
a writer. Yeah, I was a good writer. I even, in my writing class, man, the teacher, she'd always get up and read my stories and everything. Yeah, and then I thought I could have been a good writer, but the more the alcohol got in the way, and I was just living for today. I wasn't thinking what was going to happen. I had money in my pocket. I was working at the farm and had a car. I wasn't.
You've got a total writer's disposition, sir. I'm a writer, so I can spot one. You do. You really do. And so, did you have favorites? Did you have writer authors you admired?
I like Steinbeck, Hemingway, just the more famous ones like that. But but I never looked past the next week. And my friends got out of high school and they went off to college, and I'm stuck at home on the farm partying every night. But this time I'm partying every night, and. Then one day, one of them said, "Man, you need to come up to the University of Florida." And I said, "I think I will." So I went to college for a year, and I stayed 3 semesters and flunked out. But each semester was worse than, started out with like a B average, then a C average, and then a D average, and I was on academic probation, and I never went back. I thought, what am I doing? I went back to work at the farm, and then my dad came back to Louisville and came to the track, back to the track, and that's when I came back to the track, and that was 83, or yeah, 83, and my dad, this guy gave my dad half of a horse if he would train it for free. Mm-hmm. Well, my dad gave the horse, his half, to me and my two brothers. We were going to be grooming it. My other brother would be riding it in the mornings, and so the horse won over at Churchill one day. And,
no kidding.
Yeah.
How exciting, bro.
And we're going to
down in the winner's circle.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations.
So anyhow, it was August 2nd, 1984, and me and my older brother was going to go celebrate, and had a guy with us, and we'd been partying, and he said, well, we was going to give him a ride home, and he lived in Sellersburg, but he said, let's go to New Albany to this bar, and we never came to Indiana. There was no reason to. We lived in Louisville.
Yeah,
there
there's
was
no reason to go to Indiana.
Back then. I'm serious. I couldn't tell you anything about Indiana. So I
know of one thing. I think a guy named Dan lives there, but I don't know anything else about that.
But anyhow, so he says, well, let's stop by this bar here in New Albany, and we go down to the bar. It was called Terry Lynn's. It's on Charlestown Road. There's a Walgreens there now, and we go walking in there, and he had went to Silver Creek High School, and he introduced me to this girl that went to Silver Creek that was in there, and I met her and danced a little bit and got her phone number, and well, in July 20th we just celebrated 40 years together.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And
did you know that when you first met her? Was there a spark?
I was still living day to day, you know. There was sort of.
She saw hope in you, is what happened.
I don't know what.
She's like, this guy's a damn mess, but I think I can fix him.
I don't know what it is, but you know, that was at 84, and we got married in July of 85, and yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Well,
That's
thank
fantastic.
you.
Okay, well, hold up. Let's go back. So, I was on double secret probation at my college, and then they eventually sent a letter saying your services are no longer required. We don't want to have you back. I had to explain that one to my parents. But it sounds like you were kind of like, just, I don't know if you really had the passion for horses. You just sort of did it.
I didn't know for sure. You know?
Okay, sure.
No, I didn't. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I went before I went headstrong into the horse.
Did you keep riding through all this time at all? Were you doing any riding?
No.
Isn't that sad how the disease just kills our stuff?
It is, you know.
Our dreams, our talents.
And, you know, I sent in a story one time to this manuscript place, and they loved it and that, but I never followed up on it or nothing. I was too consumed about partying, and
that's what we do.
Know, I couldn't see past the next week.
If you're an addict or an alcoholic, your main job is using, and everything else is secondary. So
yes.
That's understandable.
Yes. So,
but did anybody ever say something to you, Mark? Did any friend, even your new girlfriend, say, Mark, you know, you kind of hit it hard here. You should ease up?
Oh, my mom did all the time.
Did she?
Yes. My mother, you know, no one knows you like your mother. That's just my personal opinion. No one will ever love you like your mother. But when we would come home in high school, she knew, Mom knew, and she'd wait up for us. And say, what have you been smoking? What have you been drinking? And we'd lie and say, oh, nothing, Mom. And bless her soul. My senior year, she found a car for me. It was a 68 Firebird, and I was going to buy it, or I bought it, got a loan and bought it, and I went out and got drunk, and I had it 3 weeks, and me and my brother went out to the bar and got drunk, and the last thing I remember was walking across a 4-lane highway with a drink in each hand and getting in the back of that Firebird, and woke up in the emergency room, and my brother don't remember nothing, but it's the way that the higher power works, because I crawled in the back seat of that car. He drove off the road and hit a pine tree it was probably 100 yards off the road,
Wow.
and hit the car in such fashion, the two front doors came together and split right in two. And he got ejected, I got ejected, but if I'd have been sitting in the passenger seat, I'd have been dead. And so I had a laceration across my left eye. I lost my lens in my left eye. They actually took my left eye out and put it on an operating table. And yes. And broke a pelvis. But within days, I was out of the hospital. And well, I did cut my wrist. I got a scar here, about bled to death. And I wanted to see my car. And we go to the junkyard and pull up, and I'm on crutches. And the guy said, "Can I help you?" And I said, I want to see that Firebird y'all brought in here the other night." And he said, you weren't in it, were you? I said, "Yeah, I was." He said, "Well, there's no way." He said, "I heard both of those guys died. One of them was about bled to death, and the other one was dead at the scene. And my brother had no pulse." And I said, "No, I'm here." And he about collapsed.
Your brother still survived though?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he got thrown out of the car. The two front doors were touching. And the car was split right behind the front door. And he had on them, back then, we had them fancy pump shoes, with the heels this high, slip on. And he had pressed on the brake so hard, his foot had slipped out of there and broke his ankle as he's getting ejected out of the car. But anyhow, and my mom, she was waiting on that phone call. She knew it was going to happen.
If that's how that car broke, I had a Smoking the Bandit Z28, a Trans Am 1978, and then I had a 1981 Z28. And the way that F-body was, when you're sitting in that back seat, you're back in the bucket back there. So any other car, if it had split the way it did, I think you would have been killed. But because you were so back there, protected by that third panel or whatever they call it, quarter panel back there, it's what made you get in the back seat. You just
I don't remember it.
Just
like I said,
intuition said go in the back seat. You went okay. Your brother probably even gave you shit and said, "Why are you in the back seat? Get up here with me." And he just whatever, and he just drove and saved your fucking life.
That saved my
That's
life,
crazy, man.
And
Wanted someplace to lay down.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you had 4 drinks though. You can't lay down with 4 drinks.
Well, you watch me.
yeah.
Those 2 were for you, not for you and your brother.
You know
right?
what the craziest thing about it? I used this guy's ID. His name. I used this guy's ID. He was 18 and I was 16, getting ready to turn 17. And so they looked at that ID and said, "This ain't right." My face was all bloody. "This ain't right." So they called that guy's parents.
Oh no.
Well, it wasn't a couple years after that. We're at one of them pastor parties, and my brother, he was drunk and passed out behind that guy's car, and that guy went to leave and peeled out on his face. And it's like, this poor guy, he's been kind of a jinx for us,
What the hell? Did he have facial reconstruction? Or?
Well, they grafted some skin on his face,
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, the guy thought he was stuck on a log in the sand, and
I'll never forget the guy that told the story about sleeping in dumpsters, but he had to be real careful because he would, they come to empty him sometimes at night. And he was always afraid to be in there, but he actually was sleeping outside on the back of it. And then they pulled that thing up, and he just fell backwards, and they were like, "What the hell?" But I mean, it's true enough, scary enough. All right, so let's get to the meat of the matter. When did you even recognize, or did you even think about the term alcoholic for yourself? Did you even know what that was as you were going through all this?
I never considered myself an alcoholic because I would go 3 or 4 weeks without drinking.
Yeah, right.
And then when I
Prove
would
it to
drink,
myself.
but after that first beer, what's that saying?
One is too many. A
Yeah.
1,000 not enough.
Yeah, something like that. And
So
was
that
funny.
is the definition of an alcoholic, and
Yes.
it takes people a lot of time to figure that out because the big book spells it out, but it doesn't put it in big writing. Like, look, this is it, dude. It's not about being able to put it down. We can put it down when we have to. Not always, not in advanced levels of addiction, but during a lot of our career, the heat's on. I can do what I gotta do. It's gonna suck, but I can do it.
Yes.
But once I start, why can't I just have one and walk away? That's the problem.
That was my problem. I could
Yeah.
never have one.
The more I drink, the thirstier I get. They say, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then my wife and I, we had 2 children, and every now and then I would go on a bender, and it wouldn't end very well. And
So we're talking like cops bringing you home?
no, nothing like that. Just they should have. But you know, and I knew I had a problem, but I tried to justify it by saying, "Hey, I work 7 days a week. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. If I want to go get drunk at this U of L game, I'm going to get drunk, and I'm not bothering nobody." And I justified it that way. And you know, my wife, she hung in there with me, and
You're not bothering anybody. Did you ever get ejected from a game?
no,
Oh, shit. Oh, I thought you were going to say yes.
no, I should have been.
Did you get in some good arguments with other people? So you're not bothering anybody, though.
No, no.
And
But-
probably some of those arguments, you might have said some things that were inappropriate for children, and meanwhile they were sitting right there listening to you.
Yes.
Say, oh.
Very.
So, but I get it, and I get that with a lot of my patients. They say, you know, as long as I'm getting a paycheck, I can't be an alcoholic. You know, as long as I'm taking care of my business, and they always gauge it just by money. It's like, dude, you should be home with your kid. You should be home being a good husband, supporting your wife. That's not succeeding in life, what you're doing there. But 7 days a week, that's a hell of a schedule. But that was just because of financial needs.
No, that's, the horses have to be taken care of 7 days a week.
You don't even get no day off?
If I got a day off, I would have to pay someone to take care of my horses. And,
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
And, yes.
That's a lifestyle, not a job.
It is a lifestyle, and I loved it. You know, at the time, you love working with the horses, and it consumes your life, you know. And I also rode them in the mornings, you know, and I'd be sitting on a horse at Churchill Downs looking out at the Twin Spires and thinking, thank you, Lord, for letting me have this opportunity. I never thought of doing anything else.
Like with the sun coming up and the
Oh,
fog
it
lifted.
was
and-
wonderful.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Yes.
And did you ever have a favorite horse over the years?
Oh, yeah, I had a favorite horse. It was a horse called Crown Regent, and this is where Dan comes in. This guy, I knew this guy from New Albany, and he liked the horses and that, and he would come out to the track. I don't know how we got introduced to one another, but we got to talking, and then this trainer said, hey, I got this horse I want to give away, and he's got a bad leg. And I said, well, let me take a look at him. And he was a nice-looking horse, had nice breeding and everything, and I said, oh, I'll take him. And I thought, well, I'll give him to my friend. We'll give him the year off to rehabilitate that leg, and then I'll give him to my friend, and then he'll pay me to train him, and it'll all be good. So sure enough, I gave him to a friend that Dan knows, just lives 2 streets over, or at the time he lived 2 streets over, and so we started training this horse, and first 2 races he won, and then he finished second. Then he won a big race up at Keeneland, and I thought, man, things are going great. But the guy at the time, I wasn't drinking. I didn't drink. I'd had a long career of drinking, and for some reason I took some time off from drinking. I just didn't drink. And then this guy drank a lot, and he gambled a lot. And it seemed like the more the horse won, the more he gambled, the more he drank, and before you know it, me and him had a falling out. And anyhow, that horse, I've got wind pictures of the horse with my family in it, and it just brought a lot of good times. And then, as it turned out, me and that guy have since become friends again, and things are good.
But before the falling out, I could tell from your voice, it's hopes that the horse could go further and could go further, right? In
Yeah,
his career.
he did. You know, like I said, we got him for free and won 5 races with him at 3
That's
different
awesome.
tracks, and
That is awesome.
it was a thing. That was my favorite, and but I love the horses. I miss them to this day, but it's such a grueling job.
Oh God, yes.
You know,
What you're describing.
You couldn't give me American Pharoah and say, hey, you're going to train this Triple Crown winner. And I'd say, no, I'm good.
And isn't that funny how the guys like the Bob Bafferts and those guys get all the glory, but there's 1,000 people underneath
Oh.
that doing all the grunt work.
It's a hard occupation, but there's nothing like it though when you spend so much time with a horse and you see it coming down the stretch and it's going to win a race, or you hope it's going to win. But anyhow,
It's very exciting. It's the
It
most
is.
exciting 2 minutes in sports. The Derby is.
yeah.
All right. So, getting to the worst days, when did you hit a wall, or you thought maybe I need to get some help? What would you think were your low spots, your bottoms, so to speak?
Well, about 10 years before I quit drinking, I became real involved with our church.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a Catholic, and I went to a men's retreat, and it just changed my life. I thought, you know what? All these years, that I've had someone with me and didn't really realize it. And I said, I've got someone with me watching over me, and I'll do anything I can to be responsible and don't let this person down, you know. And I did the men's retreat. I worked on 3 retreats. Every day I was reading Bible verses and that, and it's just like I was a new person, you know. I was real involved with the church, but I continued to drink. I thought, you know what, drinking's not the problem. I don't have a problem drinking, so I never thought about not drinking. And then
So you went the self-improvement when Bill in chapter 2, I think, is talking about the different ways we try to quit alcohol. You went through the self-improvement kick, which is great. I also am touched by the retreat aspect, though. Was there somebody there in particular who spoke to you or got your attention that really turned your head around? Because retreats are magical.
it was a
Retreats are-
collaborative thing. It was just
Okay.
the entire it was the alone time,
Mhm.
really, with the Blessed Sacrament, that I just sat there and poured out everything, and it's like something just came over me that was like, I got your back, you know. You know, you've been going at this a long time with all this. I'm with you. But I continue to drink.
Mhm.
You know, not every day, but when I did, it was a problem. And just so happens, and I gotta say this though, you know, through it all, I would, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for my wife. She didn't have to pick me, you know. She was a professional woman with a big career ahead of her. Why did she need me to bog her down, you know? So anyhow,
It's like picking a good horse. She knew what she was picking, Mark.
I had a horse racing up at Turfway one day. Turfway's up near Cincinnati. And I invited this good buddy of mine, Carl, to go along with me. And Carl, he was an alcoholic addict. He's just made shambles of his life, but he was good company. I loved him. I knew him since childhood. He knew all my past. We grew up on the same street. And his life was in ruins, but he was always there to have a good time, you know. And I knew if I took him to the races with me, we would have a good time. So I invited Carl. This was a Sunday morning, and I went to Mass Saturday evening, and I woke up Sunday morning, and I read the Bible verse, and it just so happened to be the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus is out in the desert, and he's being tempted by the devil for 40 days over and over, and he wouldn't flinch. You know, Jesus stayed fast. So I read the Bible verse, and went and got the cooler and loaded it up with beer, and then went and picked up Carl, and we got the horse and went on up to Turfway, and drank beer all day long. And horse raced, and then coming home, stopped to get more beer, unloaded the horse. I wasn't driving the van with the horse. The horse had a van driver. I was riding along with him, but when we got back to the track, go to give Carl a ride home, and he said, well, let's get some more beer. And we stopped and got a 6-pack. And just as we was pulling out of the Circle K or whatever, the lights came on, and at that moment, I flashed back to reading the gospel that morning, and the temptation. And I looked at Carl, and I said, Carl, I'm going to jail. And he said, oh, no, man, you're not going to jail. We haven't drank for a few hours. And I said, Carl, I'm going to jail. And sure enough, the cop pulled the truck in the parking lot, and the cop came out and took me to jail, and gave Carl a ride home, I think. But anyhow, I was too ashamed to call my wife. You know, she did not need that. I thought, you know, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to call her. And she knew Carl was with me, so therefore she knew I was up to no good. And so they processed me and everything. And it was a Sunday night, and I remember the jail being packed. And I was laying there on the floor. There was all the seats and beds are taken. I'm laying there on the floor, and instead of me owning up to what I had done, I said, you know, thinking, here I am. I've been doing all the right things for the last 10 years, and I said, God, how can you let this happen to me? And he spoke to me as plain as day. He said, Mark, I had no choice. And then in all the things that I've done in my life, the car wrecks, the close calls with alcohol just came in front of me, and I said, yeah, I understand. And I made a promise. I said, if you help me get through this, I will never touch alcohol again. And from that moment on, that was February 25th, 2007, I've never had a desire to drink, not one single bit. But getting through that night was tough. Like I said, I was so ashamed I wouldn't call. And then they said, well, it's time for you to leave, like 8 o'clock the next morning, Monday morning. And I didn't have my wallet or my cell phone, so I stepped out of that jailhouse on 6th and Jefferson, and I was just so beat down. I thought, what the heck am I going to do? And here come a TARC bus, and I thought, you know what? I could step right in front of this TARC bus and take care of things real quick. And about that time, I physically felt something grab me from behind, and it's like, no, it's not going to happen that easy for you. And from then on, I said, okay, I understand. And I just said, I'm going to take care of business, and I've never looked back.
Mm. So there's this old tradition of alcoholics having a moment of clarity, and it can take many manifestations, but a lot of times it's a direct communion experience, and I'm using that term intentionally, communion with yourself, your reality, who you've turned into, the things you've done, and then sometimes there's a sprinkling of higher power in there and stuff like that. But something was working really hard that night to get you on the right path. And I like to think that higher power, I mean, my experience of learning about this force, whatever you want to call it, I think we humans limit it by trying to put words on it. It's friendly towards us if we're trying to do the right thing. You're going to get some consequences if you're not. But if you're doing the right thing, it's friendly towards us. And so I think it really capitalized, luckily, I think, maybe thinking ahead that further on down the road there was something really bad coming in your life if it didn't get your attention that night.
I think so.
You know what I mean? You ever get that feeling? It's sort of the feeling I have with people who have had that. It's sort of this like, whew, like I have this feeling it could have been much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And
you had that powerful feeling that don't jump in front of the bus like somebody was holding you back. That's juice.
It felt
man.
like someone just grabbed me and said,
That's juice.
You're not going to do it this easy. It's not going to be this easy. So
no, it's the hard way. You got to go to AA.
So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So there was like a little substation or something, a police substation there, and there was a man in there, and I said, hey, can I borrow your phone? And he said yes. And I called my wife, who was at work. You know, she called her brother, and he came and picked me up, and then the fun started, trying to mend everything I've done. But I started going to AA, but I never participated. You know, I was going more or less just to make my wife happy, and
Sure.
Oh, he's going to AA, he's not drinking, everything is fine. And then
How did you even find out though that somebody take you to the first meeting?
No, I had to go to alcohol classes, and
Oh yeah, that's
New
right.
Albany,
You had charges.
I would ride my bike down to the city hall. I lived a couple of miles away, and I'd ride my bike down there, and you know, it's like. Then I heard about the AA meetings and started going and met some wonderful people, but I just never. I don't know. It's like I had no desire to drink. I'm fine. Next, you know.
But do you have a desire to stay sober? That's the only requirement for AA. We don't say you have to have a desire to drink to join AA. We say, do you have a desire to get
Oh,
sober?
I've got a desire to be
For
sober.
sobriety, basically.
Yes.
All right, so eventually, though, I mean, something hooked you into the groups, you know, like
Well,
to get a sponsor. So tell me that journey.
so, like I said, if it wasn't for my wife, my older brother, he never married, never had children. My younger brother, he's an alcoholic. Both brothers alcoholics, but my younger brother, he's never been married, never have children. And I told my wife, I said, if I hadn't met you, me and my two brothers would be fighting for our bedroom down in the basement of my dad's house, and which is probably true. You know, I wouldn't be nothing without her. So we bought a condominium at the Doe Valley in Brandenburg, and I was riding my bike down there one day and through the campground, and someone yelled at me. Someone said, "You're going up a pretty good hill," and someone said, "Boy, somebody's got a lot of energy." And I didn't think nothing of it. I just smart ass, you know. So the next day I'm doing it again, and this guy made some other comment, and I said, I'm gonna go see this fella. He's got to be a clown. Well, I go up there, and it's Mark Rhines. Yes.
Excuse me.
And I said, how you
That
doing?
sounds totally. I can hear his voice. Well, somebody got some energy. And he's got that loud, carried voice.
So
That's
at the
awesome.
time, he was in the madness.
Oh, okay.
And I had seen him around. I'd seen him out on, one time we're sitting on our balcony at the condominium, and I seen him out on the pontoon, and he's like a bartender. He's just handing out beers and hooting and hollering and having a good time. I said, man, that guy's a trip. And so I sat up there and I met him. He said, you want a beer or something? It's like 9 in the morning, you know. I said, no, I'm good. And I don't know if he was drinking, but he was feeling good. And he hollers for his dog. He said, come here, Floyd. And I said, your dog's Floyd? He said, yeah, Pink Floyd's my favorite band. I said, damn, that's my favorite band too. And we got to talking, and man, we had so much in common, but he was out there. And I thought, damn, it's a damn shame, you know, because we'll never be able to be friends. I can be around people that drink and carry on, but I could tell I couldn't be around him, you know. Mm-hmm. So we left it at that, and I'd see him every now and then and holler at him and talk to him for a brief period of time. But I said, man, he's a great guy, but it's a damn shame. He's such a whatever. So
He's sick.
one time my son was up, he was camping at the campground and said, hey, your friend Mark, he wrecked his brand new truck. I said, he did? I said, damn. I said, I'm sure he was drunk when it happened. And I saw Mark a few months later, and he said, man, I've been sober for 3 months. I said, you're kidding. And I got a lump in my throat. I said, my gosh. I said, and from then on, we've just started talking and that. And then he invited me to go to a Notre Dame football game with him and Dennis Healy, who I never met, and he was talking about the Spiritual Underground, his home group, and I said, yeah, I used to go to AA. I never got involved, but I went to AA, and we had a great weekend, and as it so happened, Mark, he drove his truck and pulled his camper. He had to blow in his thing to get every 15, 20 minutes, and so he's driving down the road, we're telling stories, and he's, that's the darndest thing.
My buddy Jesse, who had that, he was a musician. He was a drummer actually, but he was still a musician, and he played other instruments. And he would always say, "I think it's F sharp, Christopher," and he would blow and go, because you had to actually make a noise for it to register or something. So it was odd. At least his was, you know. But But again, that's just normal stuff for us. We go, yeah, like, what's the big deal? I got to do this to start my car.
But we spent the weekend up there and went to the game and had a great time.
So he carried the message to you.
Yeah, and he said, so I said, you know what, I'm going to come check out your AA group. And, you know, I went there and didn't know anyone except Mark and Dennis, and, you know, the rest is history. I thought, man, this is a special group of guys here, you know. And then I'd never been around a group of men that, you know, you could say you care about someone, but you could tell if certain people, they've got to genuinely care about people. They don't want to see them fail. They don't want them to go through what they might have went through. And I said, I'd like to be a part of this. And Mark said, well, we meet on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, and the last Tuesday of the month's birthday night, we meet at 7 o'clock. And so I started going, and then I said, you know what, I think it's time for me to do the steps and get a sponsor. And I didn't want to get Mark, you know, he was fresh, so I've got Dennis to be my sponsor.
Nice.
And
Get that Las Vegas sobriety. That's where
Dennis,
he's
you know, I feel bad. I don't associate with him near as much as I'd like to. I love Dennis. He was great for me, and I look forward to spending more time with him. But you know, I don't know. Just don't do it. You know.
It's okay.
There's a group of guys in spiritual underground that are so involved in that. And me, I just try. I told Mark today, I said, man, you know that Alice Cooper song took 18 years to get this far. That's the way it is with me. I can't just go from 0 to 100. It's been gradual. It's been great, but it's been gradual. But, you know.
I think that's what Bill means when he says sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our own process, and we all have our own different degrees of trauma. And trauma is a funny beast. If it's not healed, it can make you a little hang back and not throw your hat in the middle of the ring, so to speak, and you know, and be like, you know, just here's the real me, everybody. And that's not the first thing somebody with trauma is going to do. But look, I think you've done great. You've changed remarkably as far as I've seen since you've been in the group. And I'm certain that your wife has said some nice things about the change in you, has she?
Yes.
You're a little bit more patient, a little bit more kind, maybe. You pause when agitated, think it through.
You know, that was my biggest thing. You know, with all the stuff I had, I didn't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
You know? And when the going would get tough, I would just shut off. I would close off, put that wall up, bam. And
I just had a brilliant idea.
what's that?
Well, I know you were thinking about talking about this stuff today, you know, as we brought up your memories. When and if you're ready to do some work, we have equine therapy in Shelbyville. You can go to an equine therapist and they can help heal you through working with horses. It's real shit.
Oh, I believe it.
It's very powerful.
I believe
therapy.
it. I've had equine therapy my whole life.
Yeah, you have directly, but this is like with a guided counselor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something to think about, man. It's pretty
It
cool.
is.
You know, you do have an energy like a horse. Horses are very, they've got a majestic energy, but it's reserved. It's like it's very calm. It's very like, unless you know they're agitated or something. You don't want to get in their bed. I got thrown off a horse when I was a kid, so it knocked me unconscious. I had to go to the hospital. We were at what the story was. We were at Rock Creek, and my grandmother was walking me around. I'm like 8 years old, and I didn't even have a saddle on or a bridle or anything, and she's just walking me around the damn horse, and the roof popped from the heat. Those old roofs, you know, they're tin, whatever they're made out of. And the horse reared back, and somehow I held onto its mane, and it just took off for the exit. It was out of there. And I'm like going, and my freaking grandma was trying to chase after us. And I, unfortunately, couldn't hold on anymore right when I got to the barn door.
Wow.
And I hit my head against the
Oh,
damn
my
barn
gosh.
door, and it sent me to the hospital.
Yeah.
But I didn't do much riding after that. It was kind of traumatic for
It's
me.
a very dangerous profession as much as it is.
They're giant animals. They've got
like,
a lot of power.
In the mornings, we couldn't go onto the racetrack until the ambulance got there.
Oh, really?
So you're out there, and it's maybe pitch dark and riding around the track, and you could just see the parking lights of the ambulance. It reminds you how dangerous the job is.
Mm-hmm. So, when we go to wrap up, we'd like to talk about any messages you'd like to give to any newcomers out there about who are thinking about recovery but scared, or thinking about going to an AA meeting but not sure what it's all about. You know, I was talking in group today about the preconceptions we have about recovery, and I told them about Dan's book he's going to write, and the number one preconception is, I'm never going to have fun anymore now that I'm sober, you know, all that dumb shit. And it's the exact opposite. Recovery turns out to be the greatest thing I was looking for. I was looking for it in a bottle. I was looking for it in my drugs, but it turned out to be my healing, my sense of love and connection with other people. So anything you might say to the new person out there who's struggling, maybe drinking right now and hearing all this?
I would just say, you know, we do a lot of dumb stuff. And most of the time when I did dumb stuff, it was because I had been drinking, you know, and over a period of years, that stuff adds up. So once I quit drinking, I quit doing a lot of less dumb stuff, and my life got so much better. I never had to use alcohol as an excuse why this didn't work out, or why I was late for that, or why I crashed the car, or why I did this. If I could just let a young person know how much his relationships will be better. I see these young kids at Spiritual Underground and think, my gosh, I quit drinking at 47. What I would give if I would have quit drinking at 21, how much better my life would have been. Not that it ain't great now. I feel blessed to be where I'm at, and I don't understand why I was chosen to have such a good life. But I'm going to use Austin, for example. It just seemed like 4 months ago he was sitting up there and he was so angry, and he said he wanted to beat somebody up, and I thought, damn, I'm going to have to start packing to come into Spiritual Underground. And now you can just see the love in his face, and it's like, man, I said, I pray that continues with these young guys, and their lives will... Surely, things happen, but we'll never have to blame it on alcohol or drugs.
It's a miracle.
It is.
And it happens so fast if they're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a great sponsor. So, like, literally, he's the guy that I would not, when I first met him, I would not have put my hand out like that, because you go, and you get a stub back, right? But the other night, he fucking grabs me up in this hug, and I'm just like, look at you, man, letting your heart out.
I just pray that guys like him and them younger guys just continue to do the work.
As long as they don't leave, like Travis says, don't leave us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you carry a great message, and I love how humble you are about that you've had a good life, even despite the down times. Yeah. I mean, that's really a great attitude to live by. Because it's a gift, and we only get this gift one day at a time, but we take it for granted. We get frustrated because the world is frustrating. Mm-hmm. And we forget that, man, it's supposed to be enjoyable. We're supposed to be having fun in this thing called life, right? I don't know. I need to be I need a note on my mirror and say, have some fun today, man. So I want to bring Dan in here, because you said that Dan knew your buddy and has some history with you and stuff. So anything you wanted to ask Mark, Dan, or anything you wanted to talk about?
Well, when I met Dan, he told me where he lived, and I said,
I want to tell that, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
That's where I was going. Okay. I met Mark, when he come in, and he was quiet, and he didn't say much around the at first, and you don't know whether if a dude's like sober a minute, not sober right now. And I talked to him for a second, and he had said that he had some sobriety. He'd been sober for a while, and kind of gave me a little lowdown. And I told him where I lived at, and he goes, "Do you know Rod?" And he said the guy's last name, And I was like, well, yeah, And so there was this instant thing, this connection where you're like, how do you? Because that man's little brother was the guy who I first got drunk with here at this very table. In like the 7th or 8th grade, that started off my deal. It was his little brother that called me and said, "Hey, your mom and dad are at work all day, right?" "Yeah." Snow day. "Let's get some beer and drink it at your house."
Oh my God!
At this very table that we are podcasting at in this very room. So that ended up being a connection too. And as I've gotten to know him, he's run around, done New Albany recovery, and we have a lot of people we know that are mutual friends, And there's got to be. Mark and I have had to been in an AA room prior to Spiritual Underground.
Right.
Because like he said, he went to the Seekers meeting, which was my New Albany home group, and we know all these same people and time frame stuff. We had to have some years ago sat in the same room before. And I'm really good about that, remembering people, but I don't remember Mark.
Yeah.
Whatever happened.
There were 7 Marks in this. One night
it was one of them. You know how that flow
Marks
goes. Where not too long ago we had a whole bunch of Brians, and then like nowadays, there for a while we had a whole bunch of Joshes. And at the Spiritual Underground, I always said a joke. I said, if you would call a guy Mark, you had like an 85% chance of getting his name right. There were so many of them in there. But it's been cool in this story, and I've been. It's always cool to sit here and hear these stories because me and Christopher get an unbelievable, unique opportunity to sit here and hear people's right at first line story and get to know people at a level. That's one of the things cool about this podcast and the other podcasts is that there's a connection that's made because you get to hear a guy like open up his heart and talk for real, right? Because you bump into each other here and there, and you got to spend You got to invest a lot of time with somebody to get what we just got in an hour and 15 minutes here today,
True.
you know. And I thought that was super cool to hear your journey, because it's definitely different than most that we hear, right? I mean, golly, because I bet you're the same way. I can't make no sense of just going to jail and saying I ain't gonna drink again. I went to jail lots of times and said I wasn't going to drink again, and you know how many days, hours it was before I was doing it again. You know, I laid in jail asking for help, man, and I come back out and I was unable to stay sober, and it's an interesting thing that that touched you in that way, and I hear it now and again. People get, well, Bill's story at some level. He got struck sober, you know, something happened to him, and he had that instant thing that said, "Hey, you're gonna not drink again."
Yeah, when he saw higher power.
Yep.
But that's what I liked about his story exactly, is that, you know, something touched you that night that most people don't get. I mean, they get communications from higher power, they get messages, but they don't get that, because it does.
Touched and listened.
It took the fire away for him to drink. And I heard other people talk about that, about their desire to drink was removed that night. I'm like, well, it's good for you, man. I've never experienced
If I could
that.
share something else too, this happened another time. I'm constantly aware, like I said, that someone is with me, you know, and someone is looking out for me. But I had quit the horses. I never thought I would quit training horses. I thought that was going to be my life. And then the kids got out of college and got jobs, and yeah, I just like I had an epiphany, and I told my wife, I said, I'm quitting the horses. I had a friend that started working at Amazon, and I thought, I'm gonna go to work at Amazon. So I went from working 7 days a week, self-employed with no vacations, to working 4 days a week. And so anyhow,
Nice.
It was during what they call peak season, around Christmas time, and she had tickets to go to see the movies or go to a play over in Louisville. We were going to go see Newsies, and I said, well, I can't get off work till 5:30, and the show started like at 7. She said, well, I'll bring a change of clothes with me, and you just jump in my car and we'll go. So sure enough, she did. Brought me a couple Wendy's hamburgers. I wolfed them down, and I'm changing clothes in the car, and she was going to pick up our tickets at Will Call, and she said, you take the car and go on in the parking garage. I'm going to go across the street and get our tickets, and you park the car and meet me in there. So I pull in there to the parking garage, and it's right on Main Street across from the Kentucky Center for the Arts, and you go up a little ways before you get to the actual where you pay for your parking. So I get up there, and I go to use my credit card, and by this time I've changed, I've eaten the car, and I'm pretty wound up. So I go to use my credit card to pay for the parking, and it didn't work. By this time, traffic's backed up behind me, and it was 2 lanes. There was another traffic there, and so I got out of the car, and well, first I tried to call her, like I don't know what she could have done, but I called her, and her phone rang right there in the console. She had left her phone in the car, so that ain't gonna work. So I get out, and there's a guy in this little sports car with this girl, and I said, hey buddy, can I borrow $5? I said, for some reason this machine ain't working, and I'm trying to get in there to go see that show. And he said, buddy, I don't even know you. And I said, are you fucking kidding me? And when I said that, he got out and was getting ready to just lay me out. And I felt this calmness come over me, and the wind picked up. And we're in the middle of this parking garage, and the wind picked up, and it's just like this calmness came over me. And I said, you're right, buddy, you don't know me. And he got back in his car, and an older man come walking up towards me, and he's reaching in his pocket, and I thought, well, this guy's going to. And he says, if you want, go ahead and back out. I'll stop the car so you can back out of the parking garage. And so he did, and I backed out. And just as it was raining, and just as I was pulled onto Main Street across from the Kentucky Center for the Arts, this car pulled out right in front, and I just parked right there in front, and I just said, thank you, Lord, you know. So I go inside, and I didn't even tell my wife what happened, and she got the tickets, and I'm sitting there everything happened so fast. I said, you know, I just about got my ass kicked, and and this calmness came over me. I just felt something, and at that time that guy come up and he said, "Hey buddy, can I buy you a beer?" He said, "I didn't have any cash either," and I said, "No, I'm good." But just I felt the presence of. I was so enraged, and then all of a sudden, the wind was hitting me in the face. It's like, no, you don't know me. And
Right. But that change, that instant change in energy, I could imagine you saw his brain trying to compute, wait a minute, what just happened there? Right? 'Cause he's ready to pound you.
Yes.
Because he overreacted, obviously. But he's ready to throw down, and then you made a move that was so baffling to him.
I know.
Which was higher power, no doubt.
Yes.
But his brain had to compute like, I can't hit this guy. You know, whatever the fuck he
I
thought.
just said, you're right. You don't
But
know
I
me.
wonder, Mark, I mean, come on, let's add it up, God. If you had to add up, if it was years, you had of all the time you spent around horses, we're probably talking 10 years of your life.
Oh, longer than that.
Longer than
I
that.
trained for 30.
So that energy and that connection through those animals, maybe you are touched by that way, that you have a different wavelength that you've picked up from being around them that long. We are, look, don't make fun of this shit, guys, at home. We are influenced by our environment. We are. I mean, you talk about a person that grows up in a ghetto and they had nothing but thugs around, they got the shit kicked out of them every day, they're fucked for life with their, energy they grew up with. But you being around those majestic animals, it definitely taught you something. And you've got that calm. I've always noticed this energy about you. Tell me if I'm crazy, Dan, but you've got a weird, different energy about you, and it's appealing. It's very, very soothing. I mean, you look up at those horses' big eyes and shit. It's very soothing. It's scary because they're so big, but they're very soothing creatures.
I feel very blessed.
So I don't know, man. Maybe you've got that special touch. I would encourage you to develop that. Just be open to it. Intuition, or just feeling that something doesn't seem right in an environment. Simple stuff.
Well, I always kid my wife and kids because I'm always trying to figure out stuff what's going on, and I say I'm right 95% of the time, and I'll come up with something, and they'll say, "Dad, is that you're 95 or you're 5?"
Well, I mean, horses in the wild, you're not getting close to them if you don't tricky and get up on there.
Oh, yeah.
Because they sense, they know. So,
That's right.
I don't know, just develop it. I think it's interesting. I would wager somebody working with you would say your spirit animal was a horse. Have you ever looked that up online?
I haven't looked it up.
All right, so what you do is you go to Native American totem poles, spirit animals, and you can also look up Celtic. There's different versions for different branches of belief. And it will show you the spiritual meaning of what a horse means. And then it will tell you whether or not you think it fits your personality. So, you all listening at home, since you've just gotten to know him a little bit, we can actually do this right now. And I can read you this short paragraph about what a horse means spiritually. And we'll see how much of that fits Mark. What do you think about that, Dan?
I like it.
I love horses. I miss them a lot, and just the smell, the feel, everything about them. But
I'm scared to death of them. I got some trauma stuff going on with dogs and horses, and when my grandpa had a horse when I was little, and just like Christopher talked about, my grandpa was walking me around on that horse, and that horse went batshit crazy for no reason, and I was like 5 or 6 or something, and I got thrown off too and got hurt, and now I've gone to when I'm around horses, and that's another thing about horses, they know you too, right? And they know that I'm scared of them. And there's a funny thing, and I've gone, go on the riding thing with some trail ride on something, and it's really tough for me. It's hard for me to be on the horse, and I think that the horse can realize that I'm not comfortable either, and they don't, it's not like the horses have been, oh, this guy's scared of me, so I'm gonna be real nice to him. That don't seem to be the thing. There's an antsy feeling on them, and I remember one time we went riding in West Virginia, and the horse just would not settle down, and that's what they said. They come up to me and they's like, this horse is this is the chillest horse we got.
Really?
And why is it acting so antsy with you, that kind of thing. And I told them, and they went, oh, okay, yeah. It knows you're scared of it, and that makes it scared of you, too, because you're unpredictable because you're not comfortable on the horse.
Right.
And they get that.
All right, check this out. The horse is a powerful and energetic spiritual guide with many abilities. Nobility, grace, vital force, beauty, and freedom are all qualities that correspond spiritually to the horse. Having the horse as your spirit animal indicates a need to be able to express yourself freely. Sometimes in certain situations you may not be able to express yourself without taboo or embarrassment. It's not always easy to share your ideas or give your opinion depending on the environment in which you find yourself. There may be situations in which it's difficult to speak out at work, at university, with your friends, or even with your circle of friends. With a horse spirit guide close at hand, you'll feel freer to express yourself with more confidence and frankly. Even though horses have been partly domesticated by man, they remain difficult animals to control. Some of them have nonconformist characters. And so I would think that relates to you too. If there's one thing the spirit animal horse will not get you, it's boredom. The horse symbolizes passion and is associated with travel and adventure. It's an energetic spirit animal, brings strong emotions just like Leo. The horse can help you control your feelings and desires. I did like that part, though, where it says difficult to express yourself. Because you brought up about being behind that wall with your little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. I don't know. We'll see if equine therapy is in Mark's future.
I don't know.
Well, there is one last thing Dan and I wanted to do before we got out of here today. Now, you may have noticed at home, our good friend Mark here has his own unique style, and he has a different hat for every occasion. And I love that about a guy that wears a hat these days. It's a time gone by
Not a
tradition. Yeah, not just a ball cap backwards or something, but something with some style, a little chapeau. So in that spirit, Dan and I wanted to honor your taste and make sure that we're properly decked up for this thing here. So I just want to make sure that we get this on right. All right, guys. So Dan, what do you think? You're looking pretty good over there.
Hey.
So next time you see us,
His name is Hat Man.
that's right, Mark the Hat Man.
I always wore ball caps when I worked with the horses, and then I started wearing flat caps when I quit the horses, and then probably 10 years ago I started wearing fedoras, and I got about 60 of them at home. And
Oh, really?
I'd always wear the same 10, but
Start switching it up. I'd like to see some of the different ones.
Okay, I will.
I think it's sharp. I like a guy that has style to do that.
Yeah.
Now, me and my hair, I
And
can't
now-
do this for too long, but
Yeah, some people think I may not have hair, but I got hair.
That's everything about hatted people. A lot of times they're hiding something.
Yes, I feel naked if I leave the house. I don't ever leave without the
I don't
hat.
see you without a
I
hat.
can be outside mowing the grass and
never
I got
seen
my
it.
hat
I've
on.
never
And
seen
I
it.
don't know. I
I
don't
like your hat. Where'd that come from?
That's
I've
a,
had this hat for a long time. This is my old, Fred Bear, the bow hunting dude.
Uh-huh.
This is my rendition of because I would go shoot my longbow with my hat on. It's got to have a brim that will fold away or not get in the way of
Oh,
your
nice.
arrow.
yeah, like that.
It's cool looking.
Yeah, it's a nice old hat. I
Yeah,
got too much hair, it don't fit me as good as it used to because I got back when I bought it, I was burr cut when I showed up, and but it feels pretty good right now. Thank you. I like yours too, man.
I love old Bogart movies and stuff where they're always wearing the hat and taking it off when they get inside and stuff.
I like
The
that.
lady.
I like the musical. Is it Singing in the Rain
Fred Astaire.
and those guys get so dressed up. They look so
Yeah,
cool just being out
sharp.
every day.
Sharp, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened, We've
Guys and
lost
dolls
a lot of style in our culture.
Yeah.
Now
Yes.
we run around in our pajamas.
Pretty much.
Yes. Yes.
So congratulations. I think you travel in style and recovery. And if y'all want to join that, send us a picture on the comments of you and your favorite chapeau, and we'd love to see it. If you do want to reach us or ask any questions, I can pass those on to Mark or anything about the podcast. Send it to IM12. There it is. IM12, the word recovery, at gmail.com. That's IM12recovery@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we try to have a different angle every week. We have topics, we have speakers, and thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. So we'd like to, yes, thank you. So we'd like to end with the Serenity Prayer. If you at home would like to join us, it's a very calming, soothing type prayer. All right, guys, and the prayer.
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you die if you don't. Woohoo! Come back and see us. We love you. Peace.
Thank you.
Out.